Hey guys, Haz here at Shield Canine. I want to talk to you guys a little bit today about the importance of using voice markers or markers of any kind in your training. Chip. Now, the mistake a lot of people make in their training is that they assume that the dog knows why various consequences are being delivered to them. And what I mean by that is they assume that the dog knows why he's getting a piece of food, or they assume that the dog knows why he's getting corrected. And that's a big mistake to make. A lot of the time, the dog isn't 100% aware of what or why something is happening. So what using markers in your training allows you to do is allows you to streamline that communication process and make it really, really easy for your dog to understand why something happened, whether it was a good thing or whether it was a bad thing. A way to think about it that really helps a lot of people is you think about behavior as one island and consequence as another island. And what markers do is they bridge the gap between behavior, whether it's good or bad, and consequences, whether they are good or bad. So I'm going to use a clicker as an example. Not that I actually use them, but as an example because a lot of people are familiar with clickers. You click and you treat. You click and you treat. So let's say the behavior was a sit. You ask for a sit, and the consequence is going to be a piece of food. So the dog sits, I click. That's the bridge to the food. Now, a lot of people will say, well, why don't I just give them the food? Well, here's the problem. A lot of us are late in our delivery of consequences. So, for something one-dimensional like a sit, most dogs quickly figure it out. But if you're doing more complex behaviors like retrieves or, healing or something like this, it becomes very important that the dog understand the exact instant in time in which he or she earned the consequence that he or she receives. Okay? So, for instance, if I'm teaching my dog to down at a distance, and I say, down, and he hits the deck, and I mark, chip, it allows me to be late in the delivery of my reward. And guess what? I'm never going to be on time. He's 50 yards away from me. There's no way I can get the food out to him, within like a second or two of him actually performing the behavior. And in the beginning, when you're training a behavior, that's all you have. You have a second or two in which to deliver that consequence. Otherwise, the dog oftentimes doesn't really exactly understand what it is that they're being rewarded or corrected for. So I can't stress the importance of this enough. Now, as I said already, I don't use clickers just because I don't like carrying anything extra that I can avoid carrying. What I do is I use my voice. So I make this weird noise, chip. So it's kind of like a CHIP noise, chip, okay? It's weird. It catches the dog's attention. I'll do it a bunch of times and feed the dog for absolutely no reason. And very quickly, he learns through a process we call classical conditioning. For those of you that don't remember, Pavlov and his dogs. Pavlov rang the bell and fed the dogs. Very quickly after a while, just ringing the bell would make the dogs salivate for as long as actually 30 minutes after they heard the ringing of the bell once they became classically conditioned to that noise. And the marker works no differently. All I'm going to do is I'm going to say chip, and I'm going to offer the dog a piece of food. And very quickly, the dog is going to learn, when I hear that noise, something great's about to happen. Chip. Good boy. And as you can see here, Malice is already a little bit along in that process, and he knows when he hears that noise, he's getting his reward. So, I can't stress enough, guys, it's really important when you're training to use markers in your training process so that your dog understands 110% why it is that they're getting what they're getting.